Let's just go live. Nah, we live now, baby. Fuck it. Hey, I've been drinking, and Dwayne Marcus is here, and JT from JT and the Don is here. Dwayne Marcus from fucking 3 different shows on the network. I'm very proud of this young man. Fresh 21. Hey, hold up. Where are my gunshots at? Hold on. Let me give. Hey, hide your gully holes. Dwayne Marcus is a fucking newly, freshly minted, legally adult. And we're going to talk about sports next.
Give them a shot to do what?
Sports. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Stuff About Sports, presented by the mighty Give Us a Shot Network, powered by Fast Break Coffee, and sponsored, as always, Dwayne Marcus and JT, by the haters. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to all the YouTube viewership. Shout out to the Spotify and Apple iTunes listenership. Shout out to all the hate watchers that like to come on our comments and talk shit about our various shows and about our various opinions, mostly mine, because I keep saying the shit that is the truth, because we have a monopoly on the truth on Stuff About Sports. I don't know if anybody knows that, but Bert is sick. He couldn't make the show tonight. He's taking a few extra days off, well deserved. He's been traveling and he caught some bug on the road, so he's taking off. And then we couldn't do the show Thursday because his Rangers pulled it out against JT's Florida Panthers, and so he's happy to make it to Game 5 on Thursday, and then I work Wednesday and Friday. So tonight was the only night we could do the show. And luckily for me, I have some really cool friends. JT from JT and the Don, Dwayne Marcus from Protect Our Queens, Marcus Talk Sports, and Pack a Punch live this Friday. What's up, gentlemen? How you doing?
Hey, man, I feel like I have no idea how this is going to go tonight. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know why Dwayne Marcus let this man come into this show like this, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be fire.
I'm drunk. I mean, let's keep it a bean. Hey, you know what? We can never be serious if we can't joke around. And there's plenty. I mean, I wanted to get in here with some good friends. Luckily, we have a great, powerful network. I want to give you guys some flowers in a moment of clarity that I have before we get started. JT and you and the Don, with the network you've built, shout out to the Bad Medicine guys, shout out to Coach Hodge Turner, shout out to everybody. What's my man from Game Day that you guys have?
Frank Amarante.
Hey, big stuff. And then Dwayne Marcus, you guys getting all the young best talent in women's basketball coming to Protect Our Queens. You could check us out on the YouTube channel's blown up. I mean, we've gotten probably 500 extra subscribers in the last 2 or 3 months. That's just credit to you guys' hard work. I mean, I haven't barely been on here. It's you guys consistently putting in the work. So I just wanted to give you two some flowers since you're on here with me. I appreciate everything you do. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get to the real shit is today's a glorious day, gentlemen. Today, I know I'm probably the only big baseball guy, but thank God, Angel Hernandez announcing his retirement today, May 28th, the year of our Lord 2024. One of the worst umpires, worst referees, worst person to call anything in sports retires today, talking about he wants to spend time with his family, blah, 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 blah. My only regret in life is that Angel Hernandez wasn't taken out by a 4-seam fastball to the dome. The fact that he gets to just age out gracefully in this game, with all of the mistakes he's made, with all of the drama and the controversial things, the beef with Joe Torre, suing MLB because he wanted to be on the competition committee and tried to say that guys like Joe Torre were holding him back, trying to cite race, even though there was mad Hispanics on the competition committee, trying to say that Joe Torre was holding a grudge, who happened to be the president at the time. Angel Hernandez, I hope you have an awful retirement. I hope all the bad things happen to you in life and nobody else. COVID, 9/11, Diddy, all of them to happen to you at the same time. I want all of it. You're awful. You were ruined. You have single-handedly ruined the game. And because of you, because you were brazen enough to be as arrogant as you have behind the mound, you have ushered in a new era of umpires who think they can just control the game. Angel Hernandez is the godfather of controlling a game. We just saw Bryce Harper get ejected in the first inning for a minor, hey, where's the strike zone? Like regular call. And here's Angel Hernandez, his influence messing up the game for everybody. So, guys, I don't know if you guys are big baseball fans. Just shit on Angel Hernandez for me, please. Somebody say something.
I don't wish Diddy upon anybody. So let's just put that out there. Like, I feel like Diddy happening to anybody is too far. That's too much, man. That's only
That's
reserved.
Too far, right? Yeah.
Too harsh. But I mean, you're right. And I will say this: shout out to Angel Hernandez for showing everyone how not to use the race card, because I agree. Him trying to sue MLB because he wasn't placed on the playoff staff, and them just saying like, "Oh, you want to see why you're not on this? Here, we'll show you all the shit you suck at." So, I just can't believe they actually got rid of him, because the umpire union is like worse than the mafia. Like, them guys, they only age out or die out. So I was shocked that they actually pulled the plug and got rid of him. But I mean, he got to be kind of a hero too, man. Like, don't you wish that you could suck at your job that much like him and still keep it all those years? Like, I wish I can go to work every day, do everything wrong on purpose, do whatever I want, and just not get fired. But I mean, yeah, I feel like the online pressure, the social media pressure, MLB had no choice. They had to get rid of him. I mean, they're legit losing fans over him. Like, you talk to anybody that's like a true baseball head, like, you're right. Like, this is one of the things that's ruining the games. Like, they hate him so bad they want to go to fully automated umpires. Like, you can't have that kind of person in a game that's already declining with popularity. So I think MLB made the right move.
Should they? I mean, I'm with them. Now, like the head umpire association, I think it's Kevin something. I looked this up. Kevin Murphy. He's basically, I think he's Hernandez's lawyer, because that was one of the first things that popped up, right? Was Aaron Hernandez forced out, right? Like, did he outstay his welcome finally? Because for years, I mean, me and Bert have joked about it before on the show. Angel Hernandez has to have dirt on Rob Manfred and the higher ups and whoever controls the baseball Illuminati. The fact that he was able to keep his job for all of these years. But he's kind of, because we see this in the NBA with Tony Brothers. We just saw it the other night in the Mavericks and Timberwolves game, where Tony Brothers kind of asserted himself into the game, giving quick fouls, quick technicals for players arguing seemingly over justified calls. But referees in all sports seem to be more, and again, Dwayne Marcus, you're a little bit younger than us. Maybe this is just something you're used to.
A little bit.
I'm a little older. Referees seem to be like, I never used to know the name of referees, right? Like, they were just guys in gray shirts and stripes. Like, we know these guys' names now because they're so entrenched in the game, where they're making these calls that sometimes determine the outcome of a game, but usually just come at a point where, wow, like, he made that call and he's really digging his heels in, and now the players are actively hating him, right? Scott Foster in the NBA is one of the main ones, right? Scott Foster, famously, Tim Donaghy, the referee back in the early 2000s, late 90s, who got caught and went to prison for betting on games and fixing games. Scott Foster was his right-hand man. He was part of his officiating crews in a lot of the games. That
was brothers.
And so was Tony Brothers. Surprise, surprise. The two main NBA guys that a lot of people don't like. And so, and in baseball, you have Angel Hernandez. And then in football, what's that fucking black guy's name? I can't remember. Every time he referees a Bills game, I know we're going to lose. I'm like, God damn.
Boger, or the one with glasses?
The one with glasses.
I don't know. I hate that guy.
Are you sure it's the black guy, or is this the Bills just doing what they do best over time, which is
That's a great question to ask.
Excellent. Let's not pull the race car here, Jerry.
Hey, it could be. I'm the Bills. It's funny because the Bills were like, "Oh, the Bills are going to have an underrated." Let me tell you something, Bills fans. I don't want to see nobody hyping up this motherfucking team all year. It's over. 4 years straight, we've been hyping up this team. As long as Sean McDoofy is the coach of this team, we ain't winning shit until the Bills reach a Super Bowl. Okay, at bare minimum, an AFC title game. I don't want to hear about. Oh, the Bills, Chase Claypool's reinvent. This dude's he's 23 years old. He's been on 4 different teams. He's not going to magically all of a sudden be a great player for the Bills just because you want him to be. The Bills fans, and they sit there and they're like, oh, man, we're going to be deep. We're going to spread the ball around. We have a bunch of rejects playing and a bunch of unproven talent. I don't want to see the Bills get hyped by nobody. Just play the games.
Including yourself?
Including myself. I am the number one objective Bills fan. Understand? I shit on this team every week that when they deserve it. The fact that I can be objective makes me a better fan than everybody else because I know when the team is bullshitting and I'll call them out on their bullshit. The problem is teams like the Bills, teams like the Falcons, and teams like, you're so used to mediocrity, right? You will accept the glass half full as full. I'm not one of those people. I want all the water. Okay, I don't care what the Bills did 20 years ago. I want the Bills have Josh Allen in the front office, and the coach are wasting Josh Allen now. So and there's more proof of that because they're relying on Justin Shorter and Chase Claypool to fill in the gaps for Stephon Diggs. I hope the Bills know what they're doing. Hopefully the Bills shit the bed again or they miss the playoffs entirely so we can get rid of the coach because I'm tired of Sean McDermott and his bald clapping. There's nothing he does good on. Not one Bills fan can tell me one strategic advantage that Sean McDermott brings to the Bills on game day other than clapping. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of his face. I hope he goes away. Anyway, let's move on to basketball because that's really the main reason I get you guys here. The Boston Celtics cruise past the Pacers. There's a narrative out there that the Celtics have had the easiest path to the finals ever. Do y'all buy that? What do y'all think about that?
They played the Heat without Jimmy Butler. They played – who they play next? Didn't they play like the Sixers or something? No, the Knicks played the Sixers. Who they play in the second round? The Cavs?
The Cavs.
Yep. They played the Cavs without Jared Allen and Evan Mobley down the stretch.
And Donovan Mitchell.
And then they played the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton for what? 2.5 games?
Yeah, 2 games.
Would they have won these series if all those guys were healthy? Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, no one's denying that they would have won these series if these guys are healthy. But we can't help but acknowledge the fact that you played 3 teams whose best player, or in the case of the Cavs, 3 of their starting players in the lineup didn't play basketball in meaningful games. The other thing too is, let's be honest. I know there's a lot of Celtics fans that love that the Celtics are coming off of their 6th in Eastern Conference Finals in 8 years. You have no rings to show for it, bro. At what point are we going to look at the Celtics for what they are? Front runners.
Yeah.
So great. If I had to sit down and listen to people want to discredit James Harden, who gave us arguably the greatest offensive stretch of a season or of a career we've ever seen, those years he was going toe-to-toe with the Golden State all those years. I get it. No finals appearances in there. Got you. I think only 1 conference finals appearance in there. I got that. But if we're not going to give James Harden credit for that when he was literally making history, there's no player probably ever that was as prolific offensively as James Harden was during that stretch of time. But now we're going to sit here and look at the Boston Celtics, who for almost 10 years have been a shoo-in for the conference finals. They've been to 3 NBA finals, or they've been to 2 NBA finals in that time span. They sucked against the Warriors 2 years ago. Took 2 historically great shooting nights for them to beat the Warriors those 2 games. And now you're going up against a situation where, like, are they the better team on paper than the Mavericks? Yeah. But, like, are they going to, like, are we just for sure they're going to beat the Mavericks? I'm not. If you go, like, on ESPN, I know ESPN's, like, so whack nowadays, but, like, ESPN tracks, live probability of win percentage. In games 1, 3, and 4, the Pacers had a 90% chance to win those 3 games with, like, 4 minutes left to go. And if it weren't for the Pacers not being able to close basketball games, the Celtics will be down 3-1 as of today, fighting for their lives tomorrow. And I get it. Germ says, ifs are dangerous games, right? If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I got that. But, yeah, the Celtics have had by far the easiest road, not just, like, to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if there's a team from either conference that's had an easier road to the conference finals than the Celtics have had this year. And I'm going to include those years when Kareem and the Lakers were playing teams with losing records in the first and second round. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And so now the question becomes, if you're the Celtics, now in your second finals in 3 years, you're sixth, what we're talking about, you're now 2-4 in Eastern Conference Finals now in the last 8 years. You've been all of these conference finals. You've had the best record in the league several times over the last 10 years. If they don't win a chip after having been the best player in the league this season, like, we might have to resurrect that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown conversation that no one wanted to have a couple years ago when everybody was talking about they need to pick. Like, I know since that conversation happened, they've obviously been on this run, but, like, we may need to resurrect that conversation, because how many more changes are you going to make to this roster before you realize that the problem might just be this connection of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? Like, because let's be honest, as a duo, I know offensively, they don't compare to offensively Luka and Kyrie. Like, Luka and Kyrie offensively are better. But as basketball players, they're better because they're better defenders. So by default, they're the better duo. They're the better team. They have the better coach. Like, all of the things they have. And if they lose to the Mavericks, because, and I mean, let's be honest, like, Timberwolves are not winning 4 straight. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Like, they're cooked. They might win 1 tonight just for the sake of saying they won 1, but they're not going to win 4 straight. So are they going to beat the Mavericks in the conference in NBA Finals right now? I've seen the Celtics play maybe 2 complete games of basketball from start to finish this entire postseason run, and one of them was in Game 2 when they blew the doors off of the Pacers. And the other one was against any of those other teams that they should have just disposed of. The Celtics shouldn't even have a loss this postseason. They should be 12-0. But in perfect Celtics fashion, they found a way to lose 2 games, one to the Heat and one to the Cavs. They really had no business losing. And so when you talk about, like, the Celtics getting to this road easily, and you talk about who the Celtics are, like, it's very easy for us to acknowledge the Celtics' greatness in the regular season, but we need to just as easy acknowledge the fact that, like, they have not been living up to the standards of being arguably the best team in the NBA over the last 8 years.
Yeah. They
don't have a championship to show for. And you look at this, what team, seriously, I'm asking, what team has had a better 8-year stretch? This last 8 years, what team has been better, definitively better over the last 8 years? Let's say the Warriors, because that dates back into their dynasty a bit. Sure. I'll give you that, because 8 years ago is 2016. So you want to say the Warriors, they won 3 chips in that time span? I'll give you that. The Nuggets.
They won.
LeBron when he went back to Cleveland.
I'm saying if you look at every other team in the NBA from 2016 to now,
okay,
that entire time span, not like one specific season, the entire time span, what team has been better that entire time frame than the Celtics?
You mean better in the regular season?
The only one that I would say definitively is the Warriors, is because they have 3 chips in that time span.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Teams that have had individual seasons in that stretch better than the Celtics, but
probably, I mean, other than the teams that have won titles, but in terms of overall consistent, I don't want to use the word greatness, but been relevant, then yeah, I could buy the Celtics, right? Before Ime Udoka was like banging his boss's wife, like they were legit, right? Like that was the favorite.
That's what I'm saying.
They've been the favorites in the East, right?
So if you have been consistently great, consistently in the thick of things, you've basically had the best 8 years of all 30 teams in the NBA, aside from, again, the Warriors, because the Warriors have won 3 chips in that time span. And you close out this 8-year period with nothing. Right. They're going to go into this series as the favorites because they're the better team. They lose this. Like, what do we have? What do we? How do we go into next season picking the Celtics to win anything?
The Celtics have, the problem is, right? Show me your past, I'll tell you your future. The Celtics have a history of beating themselves. So I mean, even if they if the Timberwolves miraculously win 4 games in a row, which seems unlikely, and if they do, then the Anthony Edwards Michael Jordan comparisons kicked up a notch because teams are 0-149 when they're down 3-0. So I mean, the fact that, I mean, I like what the Timberwolves have done, and we'll get to Anthony Edwards in a second, but let's assume that the Celtics and the Mavs are playing in the finals. I don't know who is really picking the Mavs, right? Like the Celtics have a better team, no? I mean, you're picking the Mavs because they came out of nowhere. Before the season started, you were not having the Mavs as a title contender. You had them as a playoff team maybe, but not a title contender. And the playoff team is really because there's 10 playoffs teams now, right? Instead of the regular 8. So if the Celtics were favored to be the East favorites from the jump, like they are expected to be here. So anybody who says they are realistically picking the Mavericks are doing it off of recency bias. So I agree with you, Dwayne Marcus. There is a lot on the line for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, specifically because the narrative has been they can't play together. That has been the number one thing about this team because they have fallen apart in the playoffs the last, let's say, 3 years, legit. You know, you can take apart their youth in their first couple years, them kind of transforming into superstar type players. But like there was a lot of talk in the offseason about Jaylen Brown getting traded. Like that was like, let's not forget that happened, right? So, but because you played a Miami Heat without Terry Rozier and Jimmy Butler, because you played, you know, in some form or fashion, the math, how it worked out in terms of matchups, you dodged the Sixers because Joel Embiid basically came back early from an injury to try to make a magical push, you know, pass, and he just wasn't ready. And then obviously you dodged without Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen, which would have made a huge difference. Just one of those players could have made a huge difference. And then again, you just played the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. So now the pressure is really on you because you have fresh legs. Even though the Mavericks are up 3-0 on the Timberwolves, would you guys not agree? It's been pretty much a dogfight. Like these games have come down to the wire. These are hard-fought victories. The Mavericks just happened to luck out and win these games within the last, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes of each of these games. It's been nuts, right? Luka is growing his legend. Luka winning a title and maybe a Finals MVP with this run specifically makes him unequivocally, to me, the best player in the league. He will have taken that mantle from Jokic. I know that's a knee-jerk sounding thing, but Jokic's dominance to the finals and winning Finals MVP and having titles looks a lot different, or how Luka is doing it currently looks a lot different than how Jokic was doing it. Jokic was doing it as part of a team with Jamal Murray taking the bigger shots. Luka is doing it within the team, yet he is taking the big shots to win these games. JT, I see the discourse. I see the vein bulging out of the center of your head through that Toronto Blue Jays hat. Tell me when I'm telling lies here. How am I? What are you disagreeing with in your head?
I don't have the mute button for you, so I mean, yeah, it's all lies. But I want to go before I deal with you in a second. I'll go back to answer the question of what Dwayne Marcus was saying. I think, yes, the expectation is that the Celtics should win it all, and that's been the narrative. But I think, let's be real. You're talking about their success over like that, whatever, that 7 or 8 year span. Like, you got to remember this too. One, they were growing up in the league at that same time. And I think they probably overperformed a little bit too early. And what happens when you do that? You start putting that superstar label on guys a little bit earlier than you should. The same thing is going on right now with Anthony Edwards. It's like, oh, he's Jordan. He's Jordan. Pump your brakes. Like, this is his first playoff. Like, let him, he has to do a whole bunch of growing up and experience, failure before we start even saying he's a superstar. So I think the fact that we just gave him the superstar title, didn't check their resumes after, we kind of never took it back as an audience. So I think that's the problem. Like, the expectations for the Celtics are always too high because we just automatically assume they have two superstars on their team, and whoever you put around them, oh, it's going to work because you have these two superstars. They don't. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are not superstars. They just aren't. And I think the sooner we come to that realization and actually admit that to ourselves, the expectations for what we want from the Celtics will kind of regress toward the mean. But until we do that, it's not going to happen. Now, as far as have they cruised? Yeah. I mean, is it the easiest of all time? I mean, I disagree. Like you said, there's some teams that had losing records way back in the day, but I want to go back and look at who that LeBron Cavs team that played the Spurs in the finals with that team, like who they were playing. Because I forget, because I know that team was trash. It was like LeBron and it's 6 or 7 guys that only in the league because he called them up from the minors. So
yeah.
So I mean,
Williams.
It has been an easy path, but I'm gonna get to you about Jokic in a second. First of all, you're gonna do whatever you can, any opportunity to take a shot at the GOAT. How many MVPs and titles does this man have to win before you could just definitively come on any show at any stage and just say, you know what, he's great. He's great, and he's the best player in the NBA. Because you've been fighting me with this Joel Embiid shit for years. And guess what? I won that because Joel Embiid ain't on Jokic's level. Now, Luka, I think the conversation that will happen with him if he wins a title is he's going to be ascended into these GOAT conversations the way Jokic was once he won the MVPs. Because you got to look at Luka's body of work. He's got 5 All-NBA team appearances in 6 years. Like, the only thing he's missing, I think, is the easier things to get. Like, he gets the title, it's game over because he's going to get an MVP. Like, let's just keep it real. Like, he's going to get an MVP because if he wins this championship, his popularity is only going to grow, and especially with voters. So getting MVPs in the future, putting up all these stats, like, as long as Luka's healthy, he's going to be a fixture on all NBA teams. Like, he plays 60-plus games, he's going to make it. So I feel like him winning this title is just a gateway for him to be in the GOAT conversations forever because his game's not going anywhere. He's not better than Jokic, but, I mean, he's going to surpass a lot of guys. Like, Jason Tatum, we ain't talking about him and Luka in the same stratosphere anymore. Like, there's maybe only 3 guys in the league that we're going to be talking about them and Luka, like, if they win this championship.
Joel Embiid put 41 points up on Jokic when they played last.
And Joel Embiid hasn't been out of the second round of his life. He don't have a championship. He doesn't have. Jokic has a better team and a better coach. MVP that because guys like you cried so much that Jokic was getting all the love. You're going to hold on to this Joel Embiid MVP longer than KG and Paul Pierce hold on to that one Celtics title. Like, it's going to be you guys competing for one meaningless thing in history. Like, so what? He won an MVP. Who cares? Jokic won 2 more to shut his ass up. What more do you want?
Do you know when you lose an argument about the quality of the player? When you start reaching into, like, meaningless stats like box plus minus. When you start going into like Excel,
who was talking about box plus minus?
You are. You're trying to give me all. I'm saying.
Okay. Let's just take names out of it. Let's just do blind resume. More MVPs, better player, doing more for his team as the focal point.
That's a
and he's
lot.
gonna and you can count on him to be out there for all the damn games. Like that matters. The best ability is availability. I'm sorry, like. Joel Embiid's flashy 50 games a year. I'm sorry.
Could Embiid win a title with that Nuggets? If you switched Jokic and Embiid, wouldn't
he couldn't. You know why?
The Sixers would be better than the Nuggets then.
First of all, if you give Jokic, Tyrese Maxey, and all these other guys around him, he'd be just successful. And he'd be playing
Jamal
in the
Murray
East.
Is better than
he'd be
Tyrese
playing
Maxey.
in the East, and he'd be beating the shit out of Jason Tatum every year in the Eastern Conference Finals because we know they're going to choke. You put Embiid on the Nuggets with KCP, Michael Porter Jr., who is not good, And Aaron Gordon, what do you think is going to happen? First of all, he ain't going to be there because he ain't going to be healthy. And Joel Embiid is not going to make those guys any better. So, no, I don't think it's an even swap. I think the Nuggets would be worse if you swap those guys. The Sixers would be better. Like, that's a given. Like, they're in the finals. Eastern Conference Finals at the minimum.
Insane. That's insane. That's insane what you're saying. I don't believe you. So, all right, let's fast forward. Let's assume that the Celtics, because I think we all agree that not the Celtics, we all agree that the Mavs are going to beat the Timberwolves. Two things. Rudy Gobert, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear 4-time defensive player of the year as a defensive liability. Talk about it. And not even that. I don't even blame him for that. I don't even blame that tall, beige, goofy bastard for all the woes at this team. Every time this team loses, Rudy Gobert seems to be the one selling. I don't blame him. You know who I blame, Dwayne Marcus? I blame your guy, Anthony Edwards, who popped all that shit to Jamal Murray in the last series, who talked all that shit at the press conference. I'm the best defender in the league. I'm the best in this team. I'm shutting down this. I'm doing that. Excuse me, sir. When Luka Doncic was showing y'all who the real face of the league is, who's actively taking over the title of best player in the league, from Jokic, from JT's guy Jokic, and from my guy Embiid, who's literally taking the crown with their heads attached to it. Luka Magic Bird, taking over. Who has been on the receiving end of that domination? The 4-time defensive player of the year, fraudulent defensive player of the year, exposed defensive player of the year, not the guy who's been talking like he's the best player in the league. JT, Dwayne Marcus, if you are so-called the best player on your team, and this is why I miss 90s basketball, because Kobe would never, Jordan would never, and we know LeBron got backed down by JJ Barea in the 2011 NBA playoffs.
We're not talking about this. We're not talking about that.
If you are the best player or proclaim the best player on the team and best defender, and you're locking down whoever, it is an indictment on you if you're not guarding the other team's best player, especially when he's already 2 times now won the game in the last few minutes of the game with big shots in critical moments. Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons need to stop now, correct?
It should have never started. Like that's insane to me. Like, think about all the guys that have shown us flashes of greatness in playoffs over the last 10 years. They choose this guy to call the next Michael Jordan. I think that's insane. I'm going to disagree with you. I think the person that deserves the most blame is the guy who should have been the superstar and stepped up on this team because he has the experience. He's been in the league, and everybody tells me he's got a generational skill set. It's Karl Anthony Towns. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you're that big, that athletically gifted, and I feel like there's some games I didn't even know he was playing. Like, it cannot be that way. And it's like, this is why it's Anthony Edwards' team. This is why they had to go get guys like Rudy Gobert, because Karl Anthony Towns is a worse version of Kevin Love. Like, you just can't count on him to do what you need him to do when it really matters, when it's crunch time. Like, he'll put up some great stats during the regular season, but what can he do to carry a franchise in the thick of it? And that's who I really blame. I agree. The Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons need to stop because, I'm sorry, the way he looked in this series, he about to be the next Jimmy Butler, talking all that noise and not doing anything or delivering on any of that sass and promise. Like, he got a real opportunity to be the next Dwayne Wade. That's my personal ceiling comparison for him. But you could easily be Jimmy Butler. But I'm blaming Cat. And for Gobert, I saw somebody called him Baguette Biombo today, and I can't stop thinking about that. but I will say this. Let's just keep it a buck. Like, Rudy Gobert only gets hate because players hate him. Like, because Draymond Green is sitting up there yapping his mouth every chance he could get, talking shit about how this guy sucks because they don't like him. Like, let's be real. Like Rudy Gobert is an all-time elite defender. There's a reason he keep winning these awards. Like you acting like there aren't other players in the league that can be considered for this award. Like he is really that good. Now the real conversation is, does the NBA value or find rim protection more sexier than a guy that can guard 1 through 4 and maybe that doesn't always show up in the stat sheet? Like it's a big man's award because they value blocks more than actual like defensive percentages. And let's be real, a guy can easily get blocks at a more consistent level over an NBA season than he can consistently like have a high steal rate. Like steal rates always fluctuate in the league. And it's harder to guard these guys. I'm sorry. Nobody can guard Luka. That's why this. I ain't trying to cuss, but that's why he's putting up a triple-double every game. Like you can't guard a lot of these guys one-on-one. So you're gonna put a big 7-footer out there to try to guard Luka? Like I'm sorry, like it's not his fault. Like that's just the way the game is. But to say like his defensive player of the year is fraudulent. I think I saw Kendrick Perkins say today that he's disgraced the award and the people in the league don't respect him. Like the guys in the league not respecting Rudy Gobert has nothing to do with his abilities because they just don't like him. It's like a regular job. Like you guys work jobs. Are there people on your job you do not like? You know what happens? They don't get your respect either. It might not have nothing to do with their performance. You just don't like somebody. Your opinion of them is always going to be negative. Like he is an elite all-time defender. And like Draymond Green is the last person that should be talking because he got carried his whole career by the best backcourt in history. Like Draymond Green could easily be out there getting cooked by Luka. Like, let's not act like he wouldn't. He's trying to make it seem like he's going to be out there shutting them down and Luka's going to have 5 points. Like, Luka giving everybody a 40 piece, not just Rudy.
I want to make a quick point real quick. I was sitting here writing numbers on Post-its. I just want to go back to Boston for just a second. Not including this stretch here, there have been 5 other times in NBA history when a team has made at least 6 conference finals in 8 years. Okay, LA did it. The Lakers did it from 80 to 91. They went to 10 and 13. They won 5 of those. No, they won 9 of those conference finals. They won 5 of those championships. Boston did it. They went to the conference finals every year from 80 to 88. They went to the championship 8 of those times. They won 5 of those 8 appearances. They won the chip 3 of those 5 times. Chicago went to the conference finals 8 times in 11 years from 89 to 98. Obviously, they won 6 of their appearances, all of them with Jordan. Golden State obviously did it most recently from 15 to 22, 6 in 9 appearances. They won 4 chips in those 6 appearances. And Philly, the only team of the 4 with a losing record in those conference finals and a losing record in those finals appearances. The Boston Celtics, JT and Jerm, have been to the conference finals 6 times in 8 years. This is their second finals appearance. This is the second worst win-loss record in conference finals of similar length in NBA history, second only to the Philadelphia 76ers, who were 1-6 in their 7 appearances in 9 years. So when we talk about the Dallas Mavericks having a shot to win this series, Jeremy, you said it earlier, bro. If you pay attention to the past, it can tell you the future. And the last time a team went to at least 6 conference finals appearances in at least 8 years, not including Boston, with a losing record, it was Philly from 77 to 85. They went to these conference finals 7 times in 9 years. They won 4 of those 3 conference finals appearances, and they won 1 championship of those 4 finals appearances. So all you Boston fans out there that think that this is finally the year for Chip 18, I have some bad news for you, buddy. This is not the year for banner 18. You can try again next year. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. The history gives it to you, bro. If you're not dominating those conference finals appearances, you're not winning championships. That's just what history tells us. So we'll see you next year, Boston. The hunt for Chip 18 lives on in 2025.
You know, watch they win it though. Watch they win it this year. Like this is the year they win it, and everybody gotta shut up and just say,
let's say they do win it though. Good. You're supposed
to.
If
they win it, nobody gonna care about them numbers.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's
nobody gonna care.
If they win it this year, it's like
win it.
It's great for you, but like
Nobody gonna care because you know
no
what?
one's gonna be celebrating like it's. I mean,
They
Boston,
will. You know why? You know
Boston
why?
fans
You know
will,
why?
but I
You
mean,
know
like,
why people won't
NBA
care if they
world.
win? Because it will validate everything that they've been wrong about for that exact time period that you just laid out. Because everybody's been calling them the best team. They're the superstars. They're the front runners. They got all these MVPs. And when they don't win, people start picking away at little things. It was Jaylen Brown. It was the coach. Now it's actually coming to Jason Tatum. It's just at that critical mass point where it's like, all right, cool. If they don't win it, everybody might suck and we got to blow it up. Like the first person to go will be Missoula if they don't win this championship. Like,
which is nuts. Which is nuts to me.
Which is the right thing to do. Which is the right thing to do. Because he is not the guy to fix whatever is wrong with this team. Like he's too inexperienced.
You know who the guy is to fix what's wrong with this team?
It was Ime. You should have kept him. Like, who cares?
Like,
this is business.
What's wrong with this team is the guy that put this team together, Brad Stevens. We think because he left the sidelines to go sit up in the front office and make these moves that he's excused from all wrongdoing.
So Brad Stevens is the problem. He puts together these elite rosters. Like
the rosters
in your notepad that you have. I know you looking at all stuff.
I don't have notes.
Did you look up Boston's win differential at home this year during the regular season? How they were beating the shit out of the team by like 20 points. Like, but let's blame Brad Stevens doing that together. The problem is. The players aren't doing what they're supposed to. Porzingis should be out there, but he ain't never healthy. Like
so hold on. So Brad Stevens has put this roster together since leaving the sidelines to go be in the front office. He's been putting the team together.
And they've gone to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals every year, like you said. So how's that on him?
Last I checked, the Boston Celtics, the second greatest franchise in the history of basketball, doesn't get brownie points for going to conference finals. JT, we don't celebrate the Boston Celtics because they go to conference finals every year.
But it's not Brad Stevens' fault they're not getting the job done in crunch time. Like, what more do you want them to do? What more do you want them to do?
If your job is to make a roster with the sole purpose of winning championships,
he made him into a number one seed most years. Like, what more do you want him to do?
What does he get paid to do? He gets paid
exactly that.
He gets paid. No.
What are Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting supermaxes for?
No one in this business.
Why are they paying Porzingis $100 million? Like, why are these guys on the NBA roster? Like, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying these players are abdicated of all wrong. Like, I was the first one to say when Jason Tatum was throwing up concert dates every other game against the Warriors 2 years ago, that something's wrong with him. I have no problem getting on any platform, on any network, anywhere in the world and telling you that I don't care that he's the Larry Bird Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Jaylen Brown still don't have a left hand, and I don't care that he put a glove on his left hand during a dunk contest to try to make a point. The point is, when you're in this business to win championships. And so Germ loves 3-year sample sizes. Well, JT, guess what? We don't just have a 3-year sample size. We have 2 of those and then 2 more years. And Brad Stevens has put this roster together. And it doesn't matter that it's Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all these other guys' job to actually execute. It's Brad Stevens to put a roster together, win a championship. And if this roster,
what more do you want him to do? Everything that you criticize him for, he's gone out the next year and fixed it. Look, his star head coach slept with the team owner's wife. What did he do? He went out and found the best possible replacement. And what they do, they went right back to the finals. You're like, I don't like the way this roster is constructed. What does he do? He changes it and builds it up every year, makes the tweaks, and they're still good. And this is what I hate about talking about. This is what I hate about talking about basketball.
Wait a second.
Basketball never holds the players accountable, but they get all the credit. Everybody's game is so nice and they're so smooth and they're good, this and that. Like, we just don't know how good they are. You got to win the games. Like, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown got to get it done. Porzingis is a top 4 overall pick as a perennial all-star when he's healthy. He got to get it done. Like, there's all-stars on this team that are not.
And that's fine.
They got guys on their bench that could start for most teams, and they're still not getting it done. How is that Brad Stevens' fault?
I'm not saying it's all Brad Stevens' fault.
It's zero his fault.
What are you talking about, bro?
Zero.
If you are putting together a roster that's not winning championships, you need to make changes.
Germ, let me ask you a question.
Buffalo Bills
went to 4 straight Super Bowls. Hold on, talk. Buffalo Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost it, right?
Buffalo Bills.
Are you blaming the GM for how you put together those teams while the team's not getting over the hump?
No.
Thank you.
I'm
That's
not-
exactly the
no.
point I'm making.
No. This is not. I'm not saying that Brad Stevens is the problem. You're misunderstanding what
He's
I'm
not
saying.
a problem at all.
Bro, what I'm saying, I'm not saying right now. What I'm saying is if you come at the end of this season and you don't have a championship, and this roster, with an exception of a few minor tweaks here and there along the way, has been exactly the same. This core has still been Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the exact same. And these two players on the biggest stages continue to not perform at the level they need to perform. At some point, you have to take a look at that and say, maybe these two don't need to be together. Maybe these two aren't the two that are going to bring me a championship. Not when I've got guys like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic out here winning a chip. Not when I've got Steph Curry out here winning another chip after being god awful for 2 years. Like, I'm not saying Brad.
But you know what though? You know why that's difficult to do? Because that's an easy conversation to have when your core doesn't include two easily top 15 players in the league. Because we can say, okay, let's split them up. But what's the plan? Like, who are you replacing it with? Who are you replacing one of those guys with that's going to give you the same level of performance?
I understand that, but at what point do you look at that and say, great, we've been to 6 conference finals in 8 years. We've been to 2 championships because of it, and we don't have any chips. Like, at what point do you look at that and say, maybe we need to go figure something else out because this isn't working? I'm not saying Brad Stevens is a problem right now. I'm not saying he is the problem. Maybe I miscommunicated that. I'm just saying if come season's end, if in a couple weeks the Dallas Mavericks are the NBA champions and not the Boston Celtics, I'm saying that's a conversation that needs to happen. Because
But if the Dallas Mavericks win, why can't it be they just got the 2 best players in that series? Because I mean they do. And it has nothing to do with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown aren't good. Like, let's be honest. Like, if you go back to the beginning of the season, you're saying Luka's better than those two.
I disagree. I disagree with that. I
am.
I got you. But if Kyrie and Luka are definitively better, it depends how they play, right? Like, let's take Jason Tatum in this previous series. He didn't really have a lot of fourth quarter field goals, right? Like, when the rubber met the road for this team in this semifinals, or I'm sorry, in the Eastern Conference Finals, it was Jaylen Brown, the guy that they thought was holding Jason Tatum back, that were making a lot of the good plays. Right. And because like you mentioned earlier, there was things that you can kind of attach. Oh, he doesn't have a left, or yeah, Jaylen Brown kind of fell apart in the past, but it seems like the roles have kind of switched. I don't want to go as far to say Jaylen Brown was their closer, but in the big moments, kind of like when I make fun of you about Jokic and Jamal Murray, which happened, right? In the big moments in those Nuggets title run, it was Jamal Murray making the bigger plays. Nobody's ever going to say Jamal Murray's better than Jokic, but in that specific series, whether it was matchups or whether Murray just had the hot hand at the time, he was the most important player in that moment. Jaylen Brown seems to be doing that right now. The difference is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were always not always, at the beginning, billed as 1A and B, and then Tatum kind of separated himself where people thought, let's get rid of Jaylen Brown. When they didn't, which Brad Stevens, to his credit, said, no, we have something special with these two. Let's figure it out. The Mavs seemingly figured it out. It's the same formula. 2 dominant guys who, here's 1A, you are to go first when it comes to taking over. And we just saw in this last game, in game 3 with the Timberwolves, Luka, even though at game 2 he was the hero, coming down the stretch, he didn't seem to have it, right? Like, nothing was falling, or he wasn't getting the calls, or he just wasn't getting the spacing or the separation. All of a sudden, Kyrie was the guy. Luka then started letting Kyrie bring the ball up. Hey, let's switch now. I'll be the shooting guard. You bring the ball and set the offense. We'll run it through you now. The Mavs seem to, in that moment in time, figure out who now is 1A and 1B. It doesn't have to be Jason Tatum all the time. It doesn't have to be Luka Doncic all the time. That's the reason why they built the teams they did. That's why it's important, right, that you have the roster around your 2 guys. If you now are signaling that these are the two guys. Brad Stevens decided these are the two guys. I'm going to bring in an Al Horford to be the guy to calm everybody down. I'm going to bring up Kristaps Porzingis to be the big 4 or 5 to stretch the floor for them. He just is hurt, and hopefully he'll come back for the finals, because I think if he's not there, the Celtics are going to have a really hard time.
It's a different team.
It's a different team. They're going to have a hard time with the bigs, with Gafford and Powell and all those guys who seem to out-athleticize the Timberwolves, right? The Timberwolves have 3 centers that could be starters on other teams. Naz Reid can start somewhere. Rudy Gobert obviously can start somewhere. And Karl-Anthony Towns can start obviously somewhere. They have 3 really good bigs. That's their formula around Mike Conley, who's their Al Horford, quote unquote, right? They're old, kind of old vet coach on the court, right? Like Al Horford is that for the Celtics. It is the perfect dream matchup for a basketball fan. It'll be very interesting to see, right? We talked about Joe Mazzulla. Listen, how long has he been the full-time head coach of this team? 2 years?
2 years.
NBA Finals appearance, and then a Game 7 loss where Jason Tatum got hurt. So let's give Joe Mazzulla some flowers. He got shitted on a little bit earlier when the Celtics were struggling. They figured it out because that's what good coaches do. And so I think Joe Mazzulla is a great coach. If Joe Mazzulla is the coach of the Sixers, I'd be very happy with it. He's not. I love Nick Nurse, but I want to stop the Joe Mazzulla slander before it gets out of control, because I think he's been doing a really good job. And I'm saying that as a Sixers fan who was born and bred to hate the Celtics. I hope Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown tear their ACLs in Game 1. That's what I mean. But Joe Mazzulla is a great coach. I love Luka Doncic. I hope he wins a title. I love this for Kyrie. I'm asking you gentlemen right now, right? And actually, before I ask you this question, let's get to some of these comments, right? Martin Soares, Dwayne Marcus, his partner in crime, want to protect our queens. Check them out at @protectourqueens_ on Instagram and on the Give Us a Shot Network. So Brad Stevens is definitely not the problem, and they got Drew Porzingis. Drew Holiday, we didn't even bring him up. That's Brad Stevens, right? Recognizing we need a guy who has done this before. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown haven't done that at that position. They know he knows how to get it done. And then Porzingis, they called him the unicorn at one point. Martin finally agreeing with me. I know I've been saying a lot of shit that has pissed Martin off the last couple of weeks, and he won't say it to me. Shout out to him. I love Martin. I know I've said some crazy shit that's probably got under his skin a little bit. Kyrie and Luka are more dynamic and harder to figure out than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. 1,000%. Because you know why? Because Kyrie and Luka are more skilled basketball players. That is honestly the difference in this game. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are one-trick ponies, right? Like if it doesn't work for them, they will be taken out of this series quickly once the Mavericks figure out how to stop whatever it is they do best, or if they have an off shooting night, because a lot of their stuff is predicated to not just spot up shooting, but separation. If the Mavericks take away their lanes, it's over for them. Luka is a wizard. Probably the best ball handler I've seen with the ball outside of Allen Iverson, and maybe even a tad bit better. I don't know, but he's in that class picture. He's top 3, and he's not number 3, is what I'm saying. So then you have Luka, been playing professional basketball since 15 years old, finally has somebody like Kyrie to show him what winning basketball is like. Luka is literally the winning version of James Harden. We celebrate James Harden all these years because he has all these ESPN highlights and all these big games, but he doesn't have the winning to match his skill set. Luka has now the winning. He's in the NBA. He's going to go to the NBA Finals now. Something that James Harden hasn't been able to do on his own. So we're watching this legend grow, and we're watching somebody who has displayed a level of skill higher than anybody else at his age during his time in his run. So this matchup is going to be very, very intriguing. Shout out to Tony Hollinsworth. I believe that is Mike Hughes' guy. I've seen him with the Shy Kid podcast. Shout out to you. I believe he's part of the ASAP network as well. So shout out to them too. if the Mavs win, who gets the credit? Is it Luka and Kyrie? Like, like with his two with LeBron and the Cavs? Or will Kyrie get the credit where credit is due? So basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's asking, is this like a Kyrie redemption arc, basically? Like, and to answer your question for me, and I'll let these two get in it real quick. I'm just going to say it real quick. It depends how the series goes. If the Celtics are smart enough to kind of limit Luka into what he does, if they can kind of throw him off his rhythm, Kyrie will have to be magician Kyrie. And if he can carry the Mavs in a game or two, specifically win a game or two on his own, and if this ends up being a 7 or 6 game series and the Mavs end up winning, and you can point to 1 or 2 games that it was the Kyrie Irving game, then I think you will see Kyrie Irving get the credit. I'm not saying he will be finals MVP. I think Luka has just been built up that if he does, as long as he doesn't play like a 2-pack of ass, he'll be the finals MVP, just because that's the way NBA marketing works. But if Kyrie can win them a game or two, I think this will be a Kyrie Irving redemption arc. I've talked long enough. JT, Dwayne Marcus, what do you think about Tom Hollinsworth? Yeah, no problem, Tony. I'm sorry, Tom's Hollinsworth. No problem, Tony. I'll put his question back up there for you guys. JT, what do you think?
That's a really good question. I think the Kyrie redemption arc is kind of irrelevant because I think it's already happened just by the fact that he's on a team that he technically didn't destroy and they're having success. And he's the first guy to make it work with Luka. Like, I think there's just so many good storylines in there for him. I do think it depends on how the series goes. If they lose, I think he will get the blame. But I think if they win, unless, like you said, unless Kyrie has like those 2 games, like where it's just like it's clearly him and he's playing out of his mind, like it's gonna be Luka, just because that's what the media wants. Like,
yeah,
the media wants that next young player that they can hype up for the next 5 to 6 years, and it's Luka Doncic. Like, it's tailor made. Like, every team in the playoffs has that player where, like, hey, if they win, the script's like this guy gets the girl at the end, like he's gonna be the superstar of the movie, and it's just Luka, just because it's just his time.
Media or not, the best player on the team always gets credit, unless the best player on the team just craps the bed. And when the best player on the team craps the bed, they get all the blame. So Luka is the best player on the team. He would get all the credit. I do think, though, there is something to be said to the way in which Kyrie has handled his time with Luka. I know there's a lot of people on Twitter recently, especially as they've made this run, obviously, that have been like, why couldn't Kyrie just continue to be the 2 for LeBron? And I think you have to remember, like, where Kyrie was in his career at that point. Mm-hmm. Like, when Kyrie was drafted in 2011 with the first overall pick in the draft, I think is when it was, like, LeBron wasn't there. So it was Kyrie's team. And so it's not like Kyrie was, Kyrie joined LeBron. Like, no, like, LeBron left Miami and came back to Cleveland and came to Kyrie and ruined Kyrie's mojo, ruined his flow, right? Kind of shoved Kyrie into that number 2 role. Won a championship with him. Obviously, Kyrie loved that. But Kyrie's even said it himself. At that time in his career, he was not at the level of maturity that he's at right now. And so he wanted to go be the guy for another team because he was kind of the guy before LeBron came back, right? And so when you look at what takes place in Kyrie's career from the moment he leaves Cleveland until now, a lot of lessons learned for Kyrie from his time with Boston to a lot of people, and I was one of them, saying like, hey, Boston might be better without Kyrie because they were winning playoff games without Kyrie Irving on the floor, right? To you go from him being in Boston to then him going to be in Brooklyn and how all of that transpired and how he was essentially the reason why, at least in one instance, the Brooklyn Nets didn't compete for a championship because he opted out of taking a vaccine, and so he didn't get to play any home games. So that cost them things, right? So now to go from all of that to now be in Dallas, a much more mature human being, much more mature man, much more mature basketball player than where he was when Cleveland. Like, I mean, for Kyrie to be willing, I don't even want to say willing, but like, I mean, I'll use the word, for Kyrie to be willing to be the 2 to Luka Doncic and take that backseat, not only shows a level of maturity and level of growth in the redemption arc, so to speak, for Kyrie Irving, it also just shows just how good Luka Doncic is as a basketball player. That Kyrie Irving, a seasoned vet who is still very skilled, who is still box office and a superstar in this league, can go join someone with Luka and not feel like he needs to be the guy on the team because of how great Luka is. And so if the Mavericks go out here and they get the job done against the Celtics, Luka's the best player on the team. So Luka's going to get the credit. That doesn't mean, though, that Kyrie doesn't deserve credit, because Kyrie on this playoff run has closed out a lot of games, right? Like, there have been some games in this playoff run where Luka has not been, he might have had a great first half and went, disappeared in the second half, or just didn't have a good game at all. And here's Kyrie Irving out here just dropping buckets left and right like he used to do back in the good old days. So I think these two things are mutually exclusive, to answer the question. I think that if we're talking specifically in a vacuum of a championship, I agree with Germ to the extent that typically, unless the best player has a terrible series, if the best player has a standard series and they win the chip, Luka gets all the credit because he's the best player on the team. But if you want to talk about who gets the credit for this playoff run, it's Kyrie Irving, because before Kyrie got there, Luka was doing all the same stuff he's doing now, and he was just doing it by himself. He had Jalen Brunson in there as well. I don't want to ignore what Jalen Brunson was doing before. Obviously, he went to New York, but like, Jalen Brunson was not consistently doing what Kyrie Irving has consistently been doing along Luka's side. So like, Kyrie would definitely deserves a lot of credit for getting them to this point because he's been the difference. No, it's no different than like Chris Paul, right? James Harden was still getting, deep playoff runs in Houston. It wasn't until Chris Paul got there where they were really being competitive with the Golden State and really actually making those things a series and making them mention. We're like, maybe the Rockets can actually get past the Warriors. It's that kind of same thing, right? Luka has been an all-time great playoff performer already in his career. He's already, in my opinion, one of the greatest offensive players I've ever seen from a postseason standpoint, from all-around standpoint, however you want to say it. But without Kyrie's presence, all the attention defensively is on Luka. Kyrie's presence offensively forces defenses to stay honest and keep someone attached to him, which puts Luka in a lot more one-on-one situations, because if you're going to double Luka, Kyrie is open, and you don't want to leave Kyrie with a bunch of space and no one in front of him and a ball in his hands. That doesn't work out for anybody. So Luka gets credit for the championship because he's the best player on the team. But I do think, though, that Kyrie Irving deserves a lot more credit than what maybe he has been getting for the run that they've been on, because he's closed out a lot of games. He's closed out a lot of games for them.
So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Kyrie Irving redemption, obviously, revenge series versus the Celtics. I do agree with you. There's part of maturity, right? But the petty side of me is just going to say the simple thing. Luka's better than LeBron at that stage. I mean, let's be real. Luka's more skilled, right? The better franchise. Let's just keep it a buck. I mean, Luka's the GOAT, man. Let's stop playing. Let's stop playing this nonsense. The Jalen Brunson thing, that was like the Kyrie blueprint, right? Jalen Brunson was the reason why Kyrie's there. If you look at the timeline of events, I think the position, right? They were trying to figure out the position, right? They were trying to get him bigs. They were trying to get him maybe Luka can be James Harden, but instead, no, Luka is LeBron. Instead of getting him bigs to complement his game, let's get him another guard. And Jalen Brunson was that guy for a minute, but then they realized they can get a better version of Jalen Brunson, right? I don't think anybody's going to sit there and say that Jalen Brunson is better than Kyrie Irving. They have a similar style. Now,
right now, today,
I like Jalen Brunson.
Like if you ask Mavs fans, who would they rather have, this Kyrie or the Jalen Brunson we're seeing with the Knicks? You think they still taking Kyrie?
I do.
Do you know why? Do you want to know why? And I think me and Dwayne Marcus are
JT. There's a very big difference between who Jalen Brunson is right now and who Kyrie Irving is right now. Jalen Brunson's the number one guy on that team.
Yeah, without Julius Randle, he has to do that stuff. We get fooled every offseason by guys having these ridiculous stats. DeJounte Murray, right, is a good example of this, is usage rate. So you come in and you score a bunch of points, right? The Sixers are about to fall into this trap because I think if they cannot get LeBron or Paul George, they'll go for like a Zach LaVine or something like that. It's usage rate, where these guys inflate who they are, and they're really not that good because they have to be, right? DeJounte Murray, there was nobody on those Spurs teams. He had to score all the points. You get to Atlanta thinking you're getting that version of that player, and it doesn't work when you have better pieces around you.
Or you got another guy that just also needs a lot of usage in Trae Young.
Right. So it just doesn't like. I think now I like Jalen Brunson.
But
I think
you got to give Jalen Brunson some grace though, because I get what you're saying. You're right, but he's also shown that it's worked before. Like he's been in that situation. So I think the Mavs would take Jalen Brunson because they know it can work because he's done it before. And let's keep it a buck. He's gotten better. Like whether it's more usage, like even before Julius Randle got hurt, this dude was having a breakout season.
So I don't think it's the Julius Randle piece. I don't think matters because Jalen Brunson was already the best player on the team even when Julius Randle was there. What I would say is if you're talking about what would the Mavericks prefer in this moment as far as what's going to help them win a championship, it's Kyrie because Kyrie's proven to be the better Robin, as we like to say, to Luka's Batman. But if we're talking about a situation where I can get this version of Jalen Brunson but fit it as the two, then I agree with JT. Like they would take Jalen Brunson. The difficult thing though is the reason why Jalen Brunson is being so so successful right now in New York is because he's the primary ball handler. He's bringing the ball to the floor. He's the point guard. Yeah. And the reason why Luka and Kyrie works is because Luka obviously is a point guard. Kyrie obviously spent most of his career in a point guard. But when he was in Brooklyn, what did he do? Just like what he did with Luka. He gave James Harden the point guard responsibilities because James Harden was the better playmaker. Yeah. Similarly here, Luka's the better playmaker. Luka's the better passer. Luka's the better facilitator compared to Kyrie. Not to say that Kyrie can't pass or facilitate, but he's not on Luka's level. And so Kyrie, a much better off-ball player at this point than Jalen Brunson is because he has all of that experience playing off-ball with a Luka and a James Harden. And let's be honest, even when LeBron was there, we know LeBron would still bring the ball to the floor sometimes, and Luka and Kyrie's playing off of that as well. I don't know if this version of Jalen Brunson would be as effective or as dominant off the ball as he is on the ball. The other thing too is, as much as we all love Luka, let's be honest, when Luka doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's a statue. Right. And so you can't have someone on the team next to Luka that's dominant on ball because Luka's not going to be effective. Luka's effectiveness comes with him having the ball in his hands because of his dribble moves, because of his ability to, he said it himself, not fast, but still muscle his way into the lane because of his size, draw fouls, attack in the paint, and of course, step back and hit threes. We've all watched games. When Luka don't have the ball in his hands, he's in the corner, just standing there, waiting for the ball to come back to him. And so you don't want that because then, of course, that makes your team vulnerable because now essentially your team is playing 5-on-4 defensively until Luka gets the ball back in his hands. So Mav fans definitely prefer Kyrie because he's the better off-ball player. But if they could get this version of Jalen Brunson and he be that effective off-ball, they would take Jalen Brunson just because Jalen Brunson at this point in his career is better than Kyrie at this point in his.
So let's do some, even though I'm not a big prediction show, let's assume that it's the Mavs and Celtics in the NBA Finals. Real quick, JT, who would you take and in how many games?
Mavs in 5.
Ooh, nice. I'm shocked that you said that, to be honest. Dwayne Marcus.
So the Mavericks winning 2 games against the Timberwolves on the road, obviously, to start off this series is very telling for me. Because, again, as I mentioned earlier, you look at what the Celtics have done 3 of the 4 games they won. They struggled immensely to close games. They were behind in all of those games down the stretch.
Yeah. And
while the Celtics are the better team, there is no denying that sometimes when the Celtics are behind, they can get a little panicky. You start to see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just jack up shots trying to play hero ball.
Yeah.
With that in mind, though, I do think it's going to be incredibly difficult for the Mavericks to win multiple games on the road.
Yeah.
I do think that. I think this series is going to come down to the Mavericks winning all of their games at home. So in order for them to win all their games at home and also win the series, I don't think this game has to go 7 for the Mavericks to win, I think. Because I can't see a situation where let's say they win game 1. They're not going to beat the Celtics 2 times in a row because, to your point, Jerm, Joe Mazzulla is a great coach. And there's one thing he's really great at is making game-to-game adjustments. So I don't think the Mavericks are going to be able to win 2 in a row against the Celtics in any situation. And I don't think they're going to win multiple road games either. So I think it's going to come down to game 7, and I think the Mavericks are going to win game 7 in Boston. it fits that way for Kyrie to go back to Boston in Game 7 and send them all home while they're throwing racial slurs at him.
That's hilarious.
And Luka, they won't throw racial slurs at Luka, but Luka might throw some.
In Slovenian.
In Slovenian, yeah. He might throw some in Slovenian, yeah. So yeah,
did you see that when he hit that shot on Gobert?
Oh, yeah.
He was like, "You can't fucking guard me," and then he turns to the crowd and says, "Go home, bitches." Like I love that.
When they asked him he said, "I didn't say that. I was talking to somebody."
I was talking in Slovenian. I was just talking. I love that. I love that Luka is doing that to the visiting.
But yeah, no, I imagine 7.
Gotcha. Go ahead, JT. I'm sorry, I cut you off, bro.
Oh no, you're good. I was gonna say, hey, at least the media lets Luka do it because that was somebody else. We might be a little bit different. But
y'all know how it goes. Y'all know how the game go.
Yeah, Dwayne Marcus. But I will say this: I agree with what you're saying. It's going to be very hard to win 2 on the road. But I say this: the reason why I think that might not matter in this series is the Celtics know, because we're up there talking about them for like 30 minutes. The Celtics know what kind of pressure is on them. Look, pressure bust pipes, and you either going to see the best version of the Celtics we've ever seen, or you want to see the worst. It's almost equivalent to the level that we saw when they played my Heat last year in the Eastern Conference Finals when they were down like 0-3, and it was like the worst 3-game stretch you'd ever seen. Because if they fall apart early in this series in Game 1, it could be a sweep. It's because I don't think they're mentally tough enough to overcome that.
That's a great point. And so going back to the whole, again, when you talk about them being in 6 of the last 8 and only going to 2, there's a lot of losses that tough ones too. Like we're talking about the tough ones against the Heat. We're talking about they were not ready against the Warriors. And obviously the old adage is you have to lose before you win. So they've had all those losses. The hope is, of course, now that this is the time that they win. But to your point, JT, we've seen this team get routed before. And so that's why I look at this as, obviously, it's not just a must-win because of the better team. It's a must-win because we've seen you in this situation before where you've been rattled out the gate and it's cost you. And despite you probably being the better team, because you dug yourself in such a deep hole, you couldn't dig yourself out of it. That's one thing that you definitely have to pay attention to going into Game 1 and even Game 2 is because these first 2 games are going to be in Boston. We are looking for Boston to come out. They're going to have rest, right? Not a lot, but let's say this. I mean, it's a tight game right now, but let's say the Mavericks lose tonight for some reason. We have to go to
They're going to lose. And they go to the NBA can't afford to have a whole week without games.
But let's say they lose. Let's say they lose tonight. Now it's a Game 5. You're talking about more rest. So you're watching these games. You're more rested, and you're the better team. If you come out in Game 1 and you're cold, you're not hitting your shots, you're stiff as they were against the Warriors a couple years ago, that can start to weigh on you. And we're going to be able to see whether or not they learn from their mistakes of 2022 or if it's just the same thing all over again. So Game 1, I agree with you, JT. Game 1 is going to be very telling on how this series can go because the Celtics come out and they're stiff and they're not confident and they're not hitting their shots.
I just think they either going to come out and be scared or not. Honestly, I just don't trust them just because I got firsthand, my Heat have beat them way too many times when we shouldn't even been in the game. So I just think the Mavs going to run them out the building. But this is either going to be the best or the worst thing that's ever happened to this group of Celtics players over the last 8 years. And we're going to find out what this team really made of.
So before we get out of here, I just want to go back to some of the comments. Martin Soares, when I said that he's mad at me for some of my comments. We're good. Me and him are good officially. He said he loves me. I appreciate him. I love him too. I appreciate everything he does for us in the network. Tony Hollinsworth said, appreciate the shout out. Definitely. Absolutely. Love to get you on the show one day. Frank Chicolo says, Kyrie will be booed. He is the most hated ex-Celtic ever. Probably. I think so. I think there was a lot of expectations at the time when that happened, when he left the Cavs, especially coming off a title, that he was going to immediately pay dividends. Kyrie was going through a lot. I would understand that from a Boston Celtics perspective, even though I may disagree. David Burns says that Mavericks will be in the finals. Looks like it's tied right now, 49-49 at halftime. Looks like Luka's doing all the work for the Celtics, and Anthony Edwards has woken up for the Timberwolves. So they're both playing out of their minds. JT has the Mavs in 5. Dwayne Marcus has the Mavs in 7. I have the Mavs in 6. I think the Mavs are. I think the Celtics are going to let that first game at home slip because they've had such an easy road and obviously time off, things like that. I think that the favorites or the home team always lets that first game slip. Then I think the Celtics will get their get back in the second game. I think the Mavs will win both their games at home in game 3 and 4. And then I think the Celtics will get their win back at home. And then I think the Mavericks will take it back from them. So I have the Mavericks in 6. So does anybody have a game ball they want to give out? Anybody got any props for anybody?
And can we give props to Angel Reese at this rookie class of the WNBA? I mean, and the savior of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark herself. But no, seriously, man, you gotta give it up to these girls. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on them, and I think they've handled it well. Like they're supposed to be the saviors of the league, but they're also performing well immediately. So like, it's got to be all the WNBA girls, man. Shout out to them.
100%. I want to give a game ball to Bill Walton. Rest in peace. Not only an NBA legend, but a commentator legend at the same time. Died from cancer. Dying from cancer is never a great thing. So shout out to him. Shout out to his family. Also want to give a game ball. I'm going to grab his name real quick. Recently died. Grayson Murray died by suicide. The only thing I will say that's slightly controversial is I wish these media outlets would stop saying these young 30-year-old players are passing away. Grayson Murray did not pass away. He committed suicide. And I think it's very important that they report it that way because there's a stigma to that. And he was dealing with alcoholism. He was dealing with depression. He was having a rough time. He bowed out of the last tournament, second to last round, citing illness. Then he went home later and killed himself in whatever manner he killed himself, which is really not that important. But I hate when these young athletes, whether it's in football or the hockey or tennis or professional wrestling or any sport, anything, actors, actresses, singers, stop reporting that they passed away. Because to me, that cheapens their death. Death is sad no matter how they do it. When they commit suicide, specifically at a young age, when you say they just passed, they didn't have an illness, they didn't just fucking die in their sleep. He killed himself for a reason. And I think it's important that you destigmatize it by reporting it as such. When you say, if he killed himself, just say that he killed himself. What was his name? The Power Ranger, right? Tommy. When they said he passed away in his hotel, he didn't pass away in his hotel bathroom. He killed himself because he was arguing with his wife and he was dealing with depression because he was about to lose his kid. Destigmatize that because people are going through the similar things. People are going through things in life. So when you kind of water down the reason or cause of death, it tells these people who are going through these things that it's not okay to do this. It's not okay. And it kind of pushes them to do it anyway. But when you destigmatize it, hey, Grayson Murray, golfer, millionaire, won a major at 22, became an instant millionaire, had to deal with a lot of stuff, couldn't handle it, whatever. People who are maybe not going through that exact same thing, obviously, but going through similar things will say, wow, I need to go get some help. That's crazy. So shout out to him, not shout out, but shout out to his family, condolences, prayers, whatever you subscribe to. It's a sad thing. And it's sad that he took his life. And I think that we need to stop watering down suicide and stop making it sound like it's like this crazy thing. It's a terrible thing. And I wish, there was somebody in his corner to help him. And I think if you reported it as real as you possibly could report it, it could help somebody else. And that's really my gripe with it. So game ball goes to his family and his loved ones, and obviously him. I hope he rests in peace, whatever he was dealing with. Rest in peace to Bill Walton. Game ball to you for being such a pioneer, being one of the NBA and basketball greats, being one of the commentating greats. And then a game ball to everybody on the Give Us a Shot Network. Dwayne Marcus and JT, obviously, thank you for helping me get by with an hour and 20 minutes, basically. I was hoping to squeeze about 45 minutes out of you brothers, man, but y'all came through and helped me out. So I appreciate y'all. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are fastly approaching 3,000 subscribers. Shout out to y'all. Follow us on the TikTok, Instagram, at JT and the Don, at Marcus.talks.sports, and at ProtectorQueens_ and at Stuff About Sports. Please take care of each other, and we will talk to you next week.